me, what more could I ask for? Beautiful life. Beautiful life.
Welcome to the Live Your Dreams podcast, where success leaves clues and someone has your answer. As always, joined by my lovely co-host, Mrs. Tia Mckisset.
Hey.
All right, so first and foremost, Tia, you were on a sabbatical last week. So tell us about that.
Well, I went to the spa.
So you relaxed.
Right.
Oh, man. So we was here working. Mo stepped in for you last week. We had a good podcast, but we did miss you. So we glad you're back from your sabbatical.
I'm back.
Well rested. So today, and first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this and you haven't liked, subscribe, share, please like, subscribe, share. We're trying to grow our audience. Today, we're talking about how to overcome obstacles. First and foremost, I know obstacles happen to us all. You know, T, I used to hear people say, hey, good things happen or bad things happen to good people. But I know I've seen bad things happen to bad people, and I've seen good things happen to good people. But I think obstacles is something, you know, someone told me that obstacles is something you see when you take your eyes off the goal. You know, someone said, hey, you know, obstacles are like you have to be with your catcher's mitt. Every time you catch one, you got to drop it because another one's coming and you got to be ready for it. But when you talk about obstacles and how to overcome obstacles, because I do believe success leaves clues, somebody has your answer. I think we'll have somebody answer if we talk about how do you overcome obstacles. When I say that, what does that mean?
Well, I know, you know, for me, I used to get real stressed and upset and everything. But now I've learned since I got older to calm down, stay positive, lean on your family.
Mm-hmm. And I think also, I guess, what you taking a sabbatical, going to the spa, that helps. That don't hurt.
That helps too. I
guess that don't help some of that self-care. But when you talk about, you know, overcoming obstacles, and you gave some great pointers, but do you think that when you say, hey, calming down, do you think it's obstacles or you think it's just everyday life? Do you think it's something that we can deal with? So when you think about that, what do you think about that?
I think it's everyday life.
Yeah, and it seems like, you know, I hear, you know, a lot of people say, hey, life is becoming very, you know, filled with pressure. But I think life always been like that. You know, you look at my parents, you know, they dealt with obstacles. You look at my parents' parents, they dealt with obstacles. And if you go 3 generations back, the obstacles were just, I mean, unbearable.
But that generation was very, very strong. And now people are not as strong. So you have to be strong.
So you think that's something that, when you say not as strong, do you think, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's a lot going on in the world now. And, you know, things have gone up. Gas has gone up. Homes, people living paycheck to paycheck. So a lot of those things people struggle with.
Yeah, and one of the things I always, and I want to help somebody, I really believe that people, you know, there have always been people living paycheck to paycheck. There's always been people, you know, with obstacles. There's always been stressors, you know, in the world. So
and that's why I think families should come together, invest, you know, their money, teach your kids how to save for tomorrow, not just live for today.
Yeah, pull your resources, definitely. That's something, one of the things we're definitely doing. You know, when I look at obstacles and talking about overcoming obstacles, one thing that comes to my mind is that when you look at past generations, because now, you know, and I think we had our children on one time and they said, hey, things are becoming a little bit more difficult. Mm-hmm. But one of the things, I look at my mother and I look at the generation before that, and I looked at some of the obstacles. And again, if you go past that generation, the obstacles were just insurmountable. Some of the things, you know, we had to do to just make it, just to keep a smile on your face.
Back then, people, they knew how to get in the kitchen, cook a meal, come up with something. They didn't complain, you know, like some people do.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Tia. This is one of the things I would say when you're talking about that family structure was in place, right?
Right.
So and I'm not saying the family structure is broken now. I'm not saying that.
No.
But I think the family structure was in place, and you've seen it modeled on a really high level. Right?
Yeah, I think now it's like fast paced. Life is just fast paced. You want your food fast. You want your money fast. And back then, people was, at home, eating together, talking about their day. We didn't have like cell phones, social media or anything to, block out, time together.
Yeah, when you said cell phones, I never forget, and this is, you talking about an obstacle. This probably would kill people now, but I remember we was going to King's Dominion, and it was probably, we had a carload. I would say maybe, I don't know how we did it, but I'm sure we had about 7, 8 people in that car. But the car broke down, and this is before cell phones. And it was my mom, it was a couple of my cousins. And I never forget, my mother had to hitchhike back, because this was before cell phones. It's a true story.
Oh, wow.
My mother had to hitchhike back to get help, because my grandfather fixed cars. So she had, this is a true story, she had to hitchhike back to D.C., and King's Dominion is maybe, an hour and a half away from D.C.? We didn't make it. We were probably, I would say, maybe halfway there. We were past Quantico, I'm sure, but maybe a little bit past Fredericksburg. And for, individuals who don't know the DMV, it's just say we were probably an hour and 10 minutes away from the house before cell phones. So she hitchhiked back, and I never forget, my cousins and I, we out there fighting, and it was a bad day. But she came back with my grandfather, I believe. I don't know if we had to get the car towed or he fixed it right there, but I know we did get home. But nowadays, you got a cell phone. I mean, you have Geico or whatever insurance company you have that'll come pick you up. You got an Uber that'll come pick you up. There's really no difficulties with it, as long as you have the finances or the resources. There's
you said, that seemed easy for you,
right?
But somebody else may not have the money to do all those things.
Yeah, but I guess one of the things I'm saying, the convenience of it is there. Right. But when you think of it now, as you think about it, when my mom was going through that, maybe the resources wasn't there. Maybe you could have got a tow truck right there. I don't know why she hitchhiked, but I know that hitchhiking was big. When I was coming up, it was something that you did. So that's a good point, Tia, that you said that. So I guess how to overcome obstacles, I would say resources is important. Family's important. I think cooking at home, staying at home, we're doing a little bit more of that. But I think resources are important too, because when you have obstacles, when you have resources, you can make it a little bit more convenient.
Right. And when you got a good family structure, somebody you can call and say, hey, I'm going through this, I'm going through that, can you help me?
Yeah, one thing, and I would say about you and your sisters, you all are really close. And I know if one of you are going through something, you all call each other. And I see that bond, and I think you're right. So if you want to say, how do you overcome obstacles? I think resources, I think family, because I think both of those go hand in hand. But I think someone you can call or someone you can lean on is probably, I would say, one of the things that's up there. Could you rank that, or you think it's go hand in hand? What do you think is most important, family or resources?
Both. But I think that you shouldn't be private with things that you go through. Open up with
I love it.
Don't be private. Just talk about it, because we all going through something. So when you hold it in, you're not going to get that help.
And that's a good point, Tia, because sometimes I know when you and I talk, sometimes I would try to muscle through some things, but then we'll talk about it, and I feel a lot better.
Right.
So I think that's one of the things where you got to be transparent to let somebody know you are going through something.
Don't be so private, and I don't want to talk to nobody, and and I don't want them to know my business. But if they love you, they want to know so they can help you. And then after you talk to somebody about it, then you feel like, oh, I feel good. Oh, they went through the same thing. Oh, just even like an illness or a medical problem. If you talk about it, then you can get help from somebody else that's already been through it.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, because I wanted to let everybody know that success does leave clues. Someone has your answer. And I really believe that by talking about it, being transparent, and showing that, everybody experienced this thing called life. But there's someone who went through it before. The same thing you went through. I think you just said that. The exact thing you went through.
Right.
The exact thing. And you figure out how they did it, and you take some pointers from them, and you'll get through it also.
Right. Just like my shoulder been hurting, and I was able to call an older aunt to say, "Hey, my shoulder's hurting." At my age, you be thinking you shouldn't have aches and pains, but we half of 100 almost, and you will get aches and pains. And she said, "Oh, well, it could be bursitis or arthritis." She had already been through it.
Mm-hmm. So by talking about it, did it make you feel better?
It made me feel better because I get, back in the day, I would have had anxiety about it. I would have been running to the emergency room and everywhere.
Yeah. And you did go to the doctor, and you got another appointment coming up. But I think, like you said, you would go to the emergency room like numerous times. You'll get like not just a second opinion, but a fourth opinion and a fifth.
Yeah.
But I think you only went to the doctor once. They said everything was okay. And I think now you're learning how to deal with that. So I think you're right. But one of the things you do very well, you talk about it.
Right. I tell anybody, hey, my shoulder's hurting. Then they say, oh, that's your rotator cuff or something like that.
Yeah. So that's a really good point, Tia. So 2 things already we talked about that I think is huge when you're talking about overcoming obstacles. So we're talking about overcoming obstacles. We already have two nuggets. Family, talking about it, also resources that helps out with it. But obstacles going to always come, right? That's just life. If you're not having obstacles, you're done, right? What are you here for? If you're not being challenged, if you're not overcoming something, what are you here for, right? So that's a part of life where you got to get challenged. You have to become better. And I think that's the part of life where we have to understand that that's not going to go away. That's just a part of life where you have to learn how to deal with it. Right. And again, I go back to Jim Rohn quote where Jim Rohn say, don't ask for less problems, but ask to become better, to deal with the problems that you have, right? If we become better, the problems won't be as magnified. Not that you won't have problems, but they won't be as magnified. Going back to that scenario with my mom, because you opened up a whole another way to look at it. When that situation happened with her and us, with my cousins, I think if we had the resources, maybe it wouldn't have been so dramatic, right? And I think you're absolutely right with that. And I wasn't even thinking about that. Maybe that situation wouldn't have been so dramatic. So when you talk about obstacles, and we've been married going on 28 years, and I know you know we had plenty of obstacles. I mean that came up, and we still dealing with obstacles. But what do you think when you talk about relationships and obstacles? What do you think is some of the keys to that?
Well, learning how to apologize when you go through disagreements, and realizing you were wrong, or if you were right,
And sometimes that's not easy to actually tell somebody, hey, you know what, I was wrong. Because again, a lot of times we want to be that hero. We want to muscle up. Like I said, we want to muscle up, and we don't want to say, hey, you know what, I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And again, that's easier said than done. And on this podcast, I'm sure we're saying things that's probably, oh, well, that's easier said than done. But one of the things we work hard to try to be transparent, to try to say, okay, how do you do it? How do you come back and say, I'm sorry? Because sometimes I know when you and I are talking, and you and I have a good relationship, we talk all the time. But sometimes if that friction is there and we don't talk, sometimes how do you get past that to come back to, I guess, say that I'm sorry, or come back to say, hey, let's talk. We know, hey, we one of us was wrong.
Sometimes disagreements can come in because maybe the other person is fearful about something. Just like, the story I'm going to tell you guys when I was driving the other day, and I was following Mo, and he went through the light, but I was looking down, turning on the air conditioner. But I didn't drive in that area in a while. So when I was looking at the light, I'm like, it's 2 lights here. Wait a minute, which one do I, look at? I mean, because it's 2 of them sitting there. So I'm calling him, hey, which light do I look at? I don't know when to go. I don't want to just go out there on the highway and get myself hit. And I was very emotional, screaming in the phone, trying to ask him, what do I do? He said, well, where are you at? And I said, well, I'm where we started. And, he was like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. And I got a little bit more emotional and upset. So, I don't know. I don't think he was wrong, and I don't think I was wrong. I just got upset because that's not,
Yeah, and I think I got to clear my throat on that one. All right, so one of the things when you look at scenarios like that, I think if for example, if you place something on here, it's red on one side, it's blue on one side. Mm-hmm. You're looking at the blue side, I'm looking at the red side. I'm saying, hey, this is a red jar. You're saying, no, it's a blue jar. And I'm saying, no, it's a red jar. You're saying it's a blue jar. So we're both right. But again, we have to come to an agreement that I'm looking at something totally different than you're looking at. So for instance, let's take that scenario. I'm looking at something totally different because when I drive, I'm focusing on where I'm going. And I'm thinking like, you're behind me because again, I'm going by what I think. And I think, hey, when you're driving, you're focused. Boom. But when you're driving, you're like, hey, I'm thinking about my comfort. Let me get the air on. Let me do this. Let me check some things. So we're doing 2 different things because we're 2 different people. So when you call and say, hey, where you at? Or how do you get past the light? I'm saying like, you're behind me, aren't you? You're like, no, I'm still where we're at. So I'm saying, well, where are you at? Because I couldn't, in my brain, think that you can't still be where we started. Because again, when we started, we went past the light. And so I'm thinking something totally different. So something small like that can become something big. Because again, to me, that could be something that's trivial.
That's something small to
right.
you, but something big
but
to
it's
me.
something big to you where you're like, that could be like, I don't care. I'm not considering your feelings. But to me, I'm like, that's something that's small or trivial.
But that's why we got to look at everybody, and be there for each other because something small to you may be big to somebody else. And they going through something and you got to understand, at least, be patient with them. And
that's why I say some things are easier said than done. Because it's easy to say that, right? It's
because
easy.
Driving to you is trivial. I mean, you've been out there, Mm-hmm. But to me, even though I've been driving for a long time, sometimes I still get that fear, while driving.
Yeah, and you didn't get your license till you, what,
27.
27. So one of the things, and again, that's showing an obstacle because you didn't get your license, even though you had some fears you were overcoming. Mm-hmm. But, we didn't have money for 2 cars at that time anyway. Right. So, we only had 1 vehicle. But one of the things, again, I want everybody to understand, some things are easier said than done. Again, T and I have been married for 28 years, but still sometimes we don't agree. And again, I'm looking at a blue and you're looking at a red. And I think sometimes if we just stop and say, this is silly, right? It's not as important because again, if we go back to our motto, tomorrow's not promised. All we have is today. Sometimes we miss that. And sometimes we don't think because God forbid if something would have happened, both of us would have felt miserable. If it would have happened to the other one, we're like, that was silly.
Right.
We spent our last minutes talking about, why you're still at the light. Or you're talking about, hey, where are you? So I think that's some of the things where, again, overcoming obstacles, it could be, that's why I think Jim Rohn say, ask to become better. Because in that scenario, you and I could have been better. And we could have worked that out where some of that could have just been avoided. Right? When you look, okay, I look at my part, say, you're maybe I could check the rear view mirror or whatever it may be. Or when you call, really stop and say, where are you? Right? And really try to figure out where
Well, I
you
knew
are.
you was gone. I knew that much because I saw you drive.
Right. So
I was still sitting. You were gone.
But I think the key is actually, how do you become better? Because again, it's easy.
I mean, I could laugh now, but
Right.
going through it.
And
And it sounds small. Somebody made me listen to this like, huh? You getting upset saying, where are you? Because you at a light and he done went past the light.
But life, believe it or not, Tia, it's the small things, that really throw us off. That because one small thing becomes another small thing, and then before you know it, it's a big thing. So I think you have to catch the small things before they become big. Does that make sense?
Right.
Oh, hold on. Let me get the right one. Here we go. Hold on. I'm trying to learn my prompts. I'll get it one day. But I think that's one of the things where we have to really catch the small things, Tia, before they come big. And that's what obstacles, it's you got to catch the small things. It's just like a vehicle. And I've been there. I've been guilty. A light will come on in my vehicle and I don't address it. And again, it could be I didn't have the resources, right?
Right.
Something happens now, we can take it to the shop, but we've been there. When a light come on,
You just ignore it.
You ignore it.
Another light come on.
And then another light come on, and you ignore it, and then before you know it, you're on the side of the road,
Right.
and you have no vehicle because you ignored the small signs because maybe it was resources,
Right.
maybe you couldn't lean on a family, right?
That's true.
But because I think the two things you and I said, and again, you talked about prayer and things like that. But when you talk about resources and family, I think those are two things that can help you overcome some of those obstacles. I think you're dead on when you said that.
That's all you have. It is your family.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing, I was so happy. My youngest daughter just told us we were all going to celebrate her birthday together. Oh. And usually she's celebrated with other people. But this time she said, no, we're going to do something with the family. And I mean, that really made me feel good because again, I know that time of your life when you're that age, you want to be out there. But this time she's going to do something with the family, which is going to be still nice. It's going to be really nice.
Right.
So it made me feel good. All right. So one of the things, Tia, in a funny image came to my mind. One of my mentors, Milt, always would say, remember, because Tia and I would go out with his wife and himself, and I really look up to this guy. I mean, just the ultimate picture of success, wouldn't you say? But anyway, I remember we were together one time, and his wife was just saying something, and Milt said, must you air all of our dirty laundry? And you just had to be there, but when he said that. But I thought about that. But one thing I really appreciate is the transparency. I really do, because I really think we can help somebody. And, I think life can become very challenging. It really could. And I think sometimes you need that outlet or that resource of something you can grab onto to kind of get that solution or that answer for you. I really think so. So, I really appreciate your transparency of really opening up, because I know for a fact, even, when you said you would join me as co-host, I really was honored because I know you know a lot and I know you can help a lot of people.
I try.
Yeah, no, you do. So you do. So other than that, what else you got to wrap us up, Tia?
I say try not to complain when you're going through obstacles. Try to, stay calm, be positive, tell somebody about it, help somebody, with your testimony.
Yeah. And again, I want to lead with it's easier said than done, but it's possible. And again, you watch this to the end. Like, subscribe, share. We're trying to grow our market. So like, subscribe, share. And again, I'll see you And yes, I do mean you. Living your dreams. Peace.